If you're a student of patient advocacy, you really see that what pushes the field forward, yes, there are medical advances, that's great, but from a policy perspective and a problem solving perspective, there's usually a patient or a patient family behind it. Certainly in the rare disease community, you see that to be true.
Hello, I'm LaVarne Burton.
I'm Tamara Ruggiero.
And I'm Mike Spigler.
Welcome to Season 2 of the American Kidney Fund's podcast, The Kidney Collective, which gives an intimate voice to the many facets of living with kidney disease.
Our theme for this season is Rare Voices, Relatable Stories.
Over the next few months, we'll be talking about rare kidney diseases and explore the shared experiences that connect the entire kidney community.
Join us for these candid conversations that offer both information and inspiration. We're thrilled to begin this season, Rare Voices, Relatable Stories with Donna Cryer. Donna has transformed her own experiences with healthcare, including a liver transplant, into opportunities to design and build cross-sector collaborative solutions. She built a public policy institute in the payer space, advises diagnostic and digital innovators, founded a global nonprofit patient advocacy organization, and currently serves on the board of Sibley Memorial Hospital, Johns Hopkins Medicine. She was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, a type of rare liver disease, shortly after graduating college, and received a liver transplant between her first and second year of law school over 30 years ago. Thank you so much for joining us today, Donna. And you and I have known each other for quite a while, and I have always been truly inspired by the way that you live your life fully. You've taken your patient experience and you've done so much just for the chronic disease community. Thank you for that. Now, you've been up to a lot over the years, so just tell us what you're doing now.
My husband says that I'm in a prolonged episode of Undercover Boss Home Depot edition as we moved from Washington, D.C. to Pennsylvania recently to be close to family. And so I have my first tape measure and we're amidst renovations. And so it is a wonderful shift from very intangible things in the advocacy community, things that might take years to manifest, to tangible things that I can see the results of today. So that has been the most recent shift. But I've also, of course, kept an ear and a toe and maybe some other parts in the advocacy community.
Well, you deserve some time to deal with real things, and I can't wait to see the products. I'm sure they will be great. But tell me, you've dealt a lot of time with liver and various liver diseases. Sometimes people get a little bit confused between liver and the kidneys. Tell me, it happens to us a lot. Do you find that people ask you questions about what's the difference between the liver and the kidneys?
Well, I'm always excited when anybody even mentions the liver. But yes, we had early surveys from when I started focusing on liver advocacy specifically, that only a third of people knew that they needed a liver to survive. So, that was a starting point. And yes, when I ask people, where is your liver? They'll start, putting their hands behind their back. I'm like, no, those are your kidneys. Those are kidneys. Your liver is up here, up front, tucked under the rib cage on the right. And so having to deal with just the basic understanding of where the liver is and the 500 plus functions, essential functions that it does was job one. But we don't want people to ever forget that we are whole people and that these organs and organ systems work together. And so that's why from the very beginning, I have been always finding ways to tie liver health and kidney health together so that they both grow in understanding.
We have focused at the American Kidney Fund in recent years a lot on rare kidney diseases.
Yes.
There are some 150 rare kidney diseases. And I'm very excited about all of the discoveries that are going on and new therapies that are in the works and hopefully will soon be available to patients. Just a few years ago, something called APOL1 mediated kidney disease, or AMKD, was discovered, and there are therapies in the works for that. This disease, AMKD, particularly affects people of African descent. Tell me, in the liver space, what's the situation with regard to rare liver diseases?
Well, I'm married to a geneticist, so I would and live with a rare disease, and so I would have been remiss if I did not build a pediatric and rare liver disease council as part of our work. And honestly, I had never met another person of color with my rare disease until I had to create my whole organization. And so I've been so honored to work on things like the Rare Disease Diversity Coalition that was, started in partnership with the Black Women's Health Imperative, and do other things to make sure that everything from the medical literature and training, the diagnostics, and just general perceptions by physicians and other providers included the fact that people of color could have rare diseases and do have rare diseases, both kidney and liver. And especially excited that one of the women who went through our Advanced Advocacy Academy has started her own rare disease organization. And so that there will be a focus for people of color by another Black female founder that we've seeded in the community.
You were diagnosed with liver disease at a fairly young age. And so many people tell us that, and we can just imagine that receiving this diagnosis is so traumatic. And even more so when you're young. What was it like for you as a young woman, just entering adulthood, to find that you'd been diagnosed with the challenge of liver disease?
Well, like many patients with rare diseases, the diagnostic journey was not straightforward. I went to so many different specialists in multiple states. So as I was graduating college, I was getting very sick and losing the ability to walk, and persisted in coming to Washington, D.C., but was still meeting with various specialists who were doing everything from electromagnetic, conduction tests, so on my nerves, to finally finding a physician who reached out to a colleague of his in yet another state, in yet another institution, and took the time, and I'm so grateful for, to think a little bit more deeply. And he gave me an injection of fat soluble vitamins, and that was the key. He was like, "Well, the good news is, I think I know what you have. The bad news is you're in end stage liver disease." To be an end stage disease, um, was just not certainly not what I expected to hear. I honestly thought I had just, twisted my ankle or something coming off the elliptical at the gym. I mean, I thought it was something so simple, and it turned out to be something so complex. And I was already living with one chronic illness, inflammatory bowel disease, and then came to learn through this next process that a portion of patients with that autoimmune disease, it goes on to affect the bile ducts in the liver. And so in short order, needed to have both my colon removed and a liver transplant. I think at that stage, I still had so much confidence in the healthcare system that I was like, okay, let's do it. And so let me move on and get back to school. And my law school classmates, when we would have reunions, sort of laughed. They're like, if you thought you were gonna die, why'd you go to law school? And I was like, it never really occurred to me that this wouldn't work. My faith was so strong, and I knew God would do it, and He had me for a purpose. And I'd always, I was one of those people who wanted to go to law school to practice law, not just because my parents wanted me to or something. And so I just thought I would just persist, just keep on. That was my attitude, at the time. I look back, and some days I reach for the confidence of that young woman to help me at this stage.
Youth has great advantages.
Yes.
But you've always been so positive. Can you tell us more about the specific diagnosis that you received, the type of liver disease that you have?
So I have primary sclerosing cholangitis. It is often confused for primary biliary cholangitis. One is more often found in men, and one is more found in women. And I have the more uncommon occurrence. And Uh, it does go into scarring the bile ducts leading into the liver. So there are a lot of tests to, much like biopsies, to understand what the inflammation is and how far the disease has progressed. There's blood work. There's just a lot of invasive testing involved. For me, because even though my diagnostic journey was short and I was so young, I was in very advanced stages of disease, and so was very quickly also put on the transplant list. And I really appreciate that. I think we know in both kidney and in liver, people of color are not referred for transplant at the same rates that other ethnicities are. And so I really appreciate that my team at Johns Hopkins referred me very quickly to transplant, and we're doing sort of simultaneously a transplant workup at the same time that they were trying to give me more time. But I had the nerve, I remember, because I saw recently as we were unpacking boxes, a picture of me from that time. My eyes were so jaundiced, the bile had backed up into the systems, and so the whites of my eyes were almost orange. And so, of course, that Halloween I went as a tiger cat. And, I had the full suit and the ears like, Josie and the Pussycats or something, and, I just went with it, and my friends were like, "Ooh, how'd you get your eyes like that?" I was like, yeah, I wish I could tell you the secret." So, I just found the bright lights and the silver linings. I think about that, now as I try to live every day, um serving or laughing, because it could be my last. I was transplanted out of the ICU. My mother was told that I had 7 days to live. When she came to tell me I had been accepted to one of the law reviews at Georgetown, she was nervously asking, like, what should I tell them? And I said, well, tell them yes. I'm like, what? Are you crazy? I'm like, of course. And I had full expectations that even though at that moment I was about 85 pounds, I was hooked up to every possible machine that there was. I'd been in the ICU for weeks. Even if they had told me I had 7 days to live, I would have scoffed at that. And so, I went back to serve on one of the law journals, the journal for fighting poverty, and that is my great blessing. So God and I were right, and that's usually how I go into most conversations. That God and I are a majority, and we're just going to do this thing. And so I think there are things that have traumatized me in my life since, but that was not one of them.
Mhm. That's absolutely amazing way, to respond to that, that kind of challenge, which you really can't imagine unless you've been there.
Yeah.
You talk about the fact that you were ill during your undergraduate years as well.
Yes.
And you obviously, got through that, but then, going into law school, it began to be much worse, and you really started seeking out a diagnosis. But we know that people that our patients that we deal with have a difficult time trying to get a diagnosis, especially when it's a rare disease.
Yes.
Tell me, why do you think it takes so long? Why did it take so long in your case?
Well, it's rare for a reason, collectively. That's why one of the reasons I love the name of this podcast. Collectively, rare diseases affect millions of people. But, having served on one of the specialty boards for the American Board of Internal Medicine that puts together the tests for doctors to become board certified, it was often a battle to get the rare disease questions onto the test. Other members of the board who were, physicians often in leadership of their medical societies, would say, well, you don't see that often in practice because it's rare. But my point was always, if you're going to, hang out the proverbial shingle that you are a board certified physician in this specialty, the expectation from your patients are that you'll be able to diagnose any of these diseases, not just the ones you see more commonly. I think that's the difference in having patients as part of these boards, whether it's on testing or guidelines or what have you, because we have a very practical perspective and are important auditors of the system, um, because we have an obligation that's different than the physician members, and, not to impugn their commitment to their fields, but we understand the life and death nature of it. The consequences, if they're wrong or if they omit something, means that someone doesn't get to go to law school, doesn't get to live their life, doesn't get to start advocacy organizations. And we feel that, in the very marrow of our bones. And so when we're sitting in these places, there is a passion that comes with the perspective that we just can't let something go. That is rare to have patients. I was often the first on that committee. I was the first on that committee, and I'm the first in many. And it's my great joy that I'm not the last in many of these places. But I think that's one of the reasons that the diagnostic journey is so long, particularly for rare diseases, because I've seen the advocacy in a field. When you really look at it, if you're a student of patient advocacy, as I am, in oncology and everything, you really see that what pushes the field forward, yes, there are medical advances, that's great, but from a policy perspective and a problem solving perspective, there's usually a patient or a patient family behind it. And so, certainly in the rare disease community, you see that to be true across so many diseases, that it is a parent or a patient family that is affected and insists that there's progress. And so, I think as your organization draws more focus and highlights these rare kidney diseases and their connections to other organ systems, there will be more families and more advocates who step forward and want to highlight and focus and change this dynamic. And so until that happens, we will still struggle. But it's really advocates who are leading the way in showcasing how long the diagnostic journey is for most rare diseases, how few, patients of color are often included in research, what, FDA rare disease, regulations and clinical trials need to look like. That is because of advocates moving forward. So I think that's what it'll take in this space as well.
I couldn't agree with you more. A few years ago, we started a major focus on what we call unknown causes of kidney disease, UCKD, and it really refers to the fact that patients often don't know what's causing their kidney disease. And it's very often a rare disease. It can be a genetically based disease. And it's as if the floodgates open when we launched that effort and started bringing people together. They just started coming from all places, and most of all from patients who want to understand what's driving their disease, who may have gotten an incorrect diagnosis in the cause, even patients who may have gotten a transplant and then the transplant failed because the underlying cause was not diagnosed and was not treated. And we're just opening so many doors and having such wonderful conversations to bring the entire kidney community into this discussion and to get to the bottom of this and to make looking for rare diseases more of a routine matter and to make more therapies available to treat them.
Absolutely. And more researchers will come forward if they know that there's an active patient community, fighting alongside them to make funding available and to, help to, progress their research as well. And so I think it's a really positive dynamic.
Now, let's move on and talk some more about your advocacy.
Okay.
What motivated you to establish the Global Liver Institute?
I had been in deep prayer on the 20th anniversary of my transplant, and I wasn't at all sure that other patients coming behind me would have access to the same level of innovation and care that saved my life and sustains me today. And so, I tried to sort of volunteer my way around it, but there really wasn't an organization that had the scope, the breadth, and really the sense of urgency that I brought to it as a patient. And so, as Toni Morrison says, that if you can't find the book that you want to read, it means that you were meant to write it. And so, the Global Liver Institute was the book that I wrote to solve the several problems that I saw. One was fragmentation in the field. There were so many organizations doing very good work, but very local or very, specific to just one type of liver disease. And I saw an opportunity to bring us all together and create, this banner and this concept of liver health that would help us have the same impact, hopefully, that, the American Heart Association and other, organ centric behemoths in the space that I respected and had worked with would have for liver. And the other thing was to eventually, as I started was a little further in developing it, I realized that I wanted to be able to pass on the different types of advocacy and expertise that I had developed across my career, whether that was in working in clinical trial recruitment or communications or state and federal policy. And so our Advanced Advocacy Academy became that way that I could, bring patients together and help them identify their talents and the pain points in their journey that they really wanted to change, and equip them with the skills to do that. And that has been, my greatest joy, to see the graduates of A3, as we call it, starting their own organizations or passing legislation in their state, or they've done so many wonderful things. One has recently started a transplant medications navigation service to help people understand whether, agnostic of transplants. So kidney transplants, liver transplants, heart, you get the transplant, you think, okay, you've succeeded. And then you have to pay for the medications and you have to find that. And there are still gaps in policy, even with the ESRD program, even with Medicare. There's so many gaps in the way that patients are supported post transplant. And it's exciting to see a graduate of my program stepping in to solve that problem. That was the intent. Some things I didn't even know to wish for or hope for or pray for. So it's become so much larger than I had ever thought or imagined.
And now you've been diagnosed with CKD, I've recently learned.
Yes.
Tell me about that and how that has impacted your life when you're also living with liver transplant.
It is not uncommon for transplant recipients who have been out 10, 20. I realize someone mentioned to me that every day that I live um, is changing the prognosis for liver transplant. Because when I was transplanted, they said, well, maybe, it's 10 years. They didn't know. It was such the dawn of the era, honestly. And the medications I was taking were still called, FK506. They had letters and numbers, not even names. So it's not uncommon because of the medications for there to be some level of kidney damage. That's not what I'm actually experiencing. And I'm grateful for my experience in the rare disease space to ask for the doctors to look a little deeper. Really, my kidney disease is more of an effect of the chronic dehydration that I've experienced for so many years because of my inflammatory bowel disease. So I am responsive to fluids still. There are some days and sometimes where I feel like I failed my labs. I'm like, I failed my labs. My, creatinine would be over 2, and other measures would be quite alarming. And so there is some atrophy in my kidneys, and I have even been hospitalized for acute kidney injury on top of chronic kidney disease. And so I'm so glad I made friends in the renal space all these years. And so I have some some good karma even from back in my days creating kidney care partners. and working on dialysis funding and reimbursement to all the time that we have spent collaborating as well. My blood pressure is much better since I left the CEO position. I'll just say, and I am privileged enough to get fluids at home, IV fluids at home. Even my doctors are like, "What is that? How do you do that?" I'm like, "Why don't you know? Why aren't you prescribing this to your patients?" And so that has been helpful. And so we're continuing to monitor. But, as I even just 2 nights ago was advising a patient, a close friend of mine, who just heard that she would need a kidney transplant. And I look, and her numbers are better than mine. I'm just like, you know, uh, God sustains, and so I I'm here for as long as he'll have me. I'm here for what he wants me to do, and I'm here for helping navigate other people through the process, and asking questions, and I'm enriched by supporting them through their own experience, but it's difficult. One of the most difficult transitions is from a healthy person to get their first diagnosis and to become labeled with this identity as patient. It's something I've always embraced as my, Instagram and other handles is, DC patient. But as they add up at a certain number of diagnoses and challenges and rotations of specialists, that I need to maintain, it's something that you need to I need to make sure that my own cup is full, that my own resilience and resources are replenished, because it does take a toll, um, to be able to, stay positive and stay engaged and stay active, while you are just monitoring and trying to live your best life possible, and to do the things that control the controllables, to do the things that you can do, and give the other things to God and good doctors. So that is where I am. I'm just grateful that I knew as much about kidney health as I did liver health going into this, so that I could, and can, maintain as long as possible.
You've had absolutely amazing challenges, but also the very good blessings of being able to get to the right providers at the right time, together with, of course, your faith has sustained you. Are there any thoughts that you have, any reflections on the U.S. transplant system that you'd like to share based upon the many years of experience that you've had?
Yes, I have shared my thoughts on the U.S. transplant system with both the House and the Senate Finance committees. I am very grateful that the committees listen to us, and that CMS and HRSA have been able to revamp and reissue the OPTN contract for the first time in 40 years, and also working on issues of data transparency so that we could really understand the performance of all the different parts of the transplant system. So I think that the transplant system undergoing change right now, and also scrutiny of individual transplant centers. I've served on the Membership and Professional Standards Committee, and often the scrutiny and the oversight of individual centers was a little soft from my perspective as a patient and a former federal prosecutor. I am heartened to see that there are more visible actions being taken. So I think this is really a new era in transplantation, where patients have been heard, and we've partnered with Congress, and the administration knows that there is a public trust that is placed in the transplant system as a whole, from the organ procurement organizations going into communities to the maintainers of the lists, and the transplant centers themselves. I'm so excited to see advocates continuing to take that baton and keep running that race.
What do you think we as advocates should be doing now? What's the thing that you think would make the greatest difference in terms of our advancing the cause, particularly of rare diseases? And the second part of that is, what do you wish more people knew about living with a rare disease?
Advocacy can take many forms, and I want people to make sure that when they talk about advocacy, they're not just thinking, "Oh, I have to go to Capitol Hill and do this thing." I think some of the most effective advocacy is in working with medical trainees, with the students and fellows, and the rule makers around what is required in medical training, ensuring that young doctors, as they're rising through the ranks, are knowledgeable about rare diseases and excited about doing research and are brought up in a culture of partnership with patient advocates. I think that's something that is often ignored but bears so much fruit. In rare diseases, what I wish to be able to collect data and to collect samples and to use them to further. One of the things that I've noted, I was on some panels at some medical conferences, and they would talk about processes that didn't include, included so many missed opportunities to learn, that in the course of normal care, there are so many opportunities to simultaneously do research, or to use things in with patients' consent, for research purposes. I think hopefully that may happen a little bit more with AI, but because rare diseases outside of certain centers, are so disaggregated, we can't lose any we shouldn't lose any opportunity to collect samples or to ask a question, so that every center, every clinical encounter is an opportunity to learn more and to do more about rare disease care and research.
Thank you so much, Donna. This has just been an absolutely wonderful conversation. I leave it with a couple of thoughts. You said an awful lot of things, but I leave it with a couple of thoughts. One is, we really have to take advantage of those unique opportunities to advocate, whether it's with policymakers, but also with the medical community, especially those who are just entering. And we have to use every opportunity that we can to think about, to work about, and to look for how do we really emphasize the importance of rare diseases. So thank you so much for sharing those thoughts with us and sharing this morning discussion with us. We really appreciate it. And thank you so much for all that you have done over the years and continue to do with regard to people that have chronic diseases, especially rare diseases. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for including me in these conversations.
Delighted to have you.
To find out more about the topics we discussed in this episode, or to access resources to learn more about kidney disease, go to the episode show notes on your podcast listening platform or go to kidneyfund.org/podcast. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe or follow the Kidney Collective wherever you listen to podcasts, and leave us a like or review to help us reach more members of the kidney community.
You can also follow AKF on all major social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, X, or whatever comes next. Join us next time. Remember that even in the toughest moments, there's hope ahead, and the Kidney Collective and AKF are here for you now.